When I first started on YouTube, perhaps the most frustrating thing of all was understanding what equipment I needed to get. I knew that I wanted to invest in having reasonably high level of production value when it came to these videos, but it was just completely overwhelming about what I should be getting. And despite having a photography GCSE, I knew nothing about cameras whatsoever, and even less about microphones and audio. So I began doing what turned out to be a ridiculous amount of research. I was sitting through YouTube videos that compared cameras and microphones, and to be honest, I was getting nowhere. Because the problem was, I'd watch one video and I'd be like, oh yeah, the camera looks really great here, nice clear picture, perfect. I'll just watch one more video to check. The next video I'll go to, it looks terrible. I'm like, what's happening? It's the same camera. Same with audio. I would listen to side-by-side comparisons, and yet on one video it sounded how I wanted, on another it didn't, and I was just getting really lost about what equipment I actually needed, what was the best investments I could make that would be worthwhile and wouldn't just waste my money. And so this video is going to not only save you a lot of time, probably countless hours, but it's also going to save you a lot of money, because I've done the research, I've done the testing, and I now know the truth. I know where I was going wrong. So let me now share that with you to hopefully save you some time and money. The first thing we need to talk about is the camera, because I think most people logically assume that when it comes to video quality, the camera is going to be the most crucial element. I don't think that's true at all. I think if you set up your smartphone camera, you literally take your phone out of your pocket, set up your smartphone camera, and you set up an expensive DSLR camera to the side, both filming the same video. If you've got good lighting, I don't think there's going to be a crazy difference between the two videos. I think the lighting is really the key. And there are a lot of options you can use here, which mean you can get much better video quality without spending all that money on an expensive camera. For example, there's a lighting setup like this, which is what I am using right now. There are simpler options like this that don't need as much setup that would still give you much better results than the light you currently have in your house. And so I think if you are looking to invest, the lighting is always a better starting point in terms of the return on investment you're going to get and the quality difference you're going to get. Because if it's bad lighting, then it doesn't matter how fancy the camera is, the video is still not going to look great. And if you do go out and spend all that money on a DSLR, you then have to go and buy a lens as well, and suddenly the cost is just mounting up way more than you needed, and it's just extra stuff that maybe gives you a tiny few percent extra quality, but really nothing crazy. So focus on the lighting more. That's something I wish I had known sooner. Because yeah, it just makes such a difference. If you are wondering what I'm using right now to film this, it's the Canon 80D, and that's just because from the research I did, the majority of well-known YouTubers seem to go for the Canon range there. The Canon 70D is a one that a lot of people use. The Canon 80D is obviously just the next version out, but either of those are great cameras, and they've got the advantage of having a flip screen where you can see yourself. Right now I can see this is recording, which is very useful when you're filming by yourself. But it's definitely not necessary at the beginning. So invest in the lighting first, then upgrade the camera if you want that extra few percent of quality. The next thing we need to talk about though is the microphone that you use in your videos, because I actually think that the audio quality is probably more important than the video quality. And that's because people don't really mind if the video is just okay, as long as they can see what's happening. But they do mind if the audio is not great. If the audio isn't clear, people aren't going to watch. And so you can get away with not amazing video as long as the audio is clear. And so when I realized this, I spent a lot of time trying to understand what the best microphones were. I was willing to invest the money if I thought I was going to get really great audio quality. But then I kind of went down this rabbit hole of all these different reviews of microphones, and it was very confusing because I would listen to... I still remember this one video where I was listening to it and they were doing like a blind test of one microphone that cost like $100, one that cost like $1,000. And I was pretty sure I knew which the more expensive one was. I was like, yeah, that does sound a little bit better. But then they revealed it, and that was the $100 microphone. And I was like, what? Now, obviously, I'm not at all used to microphones. I'm sure if someone who knew a lot about audio listened to it, they'd probably know which was which. But the reality was there wasn't much difference between them. That was the upshot. And yet there was a vast difference in price. And then what I went on to realize is that the quality of the audio is massively, massively determined by the recording environment. That video was in a really professional recording studio, and when the conditions were like that, actually it didn't matter that the microphone was relatively cheap, it still provided really good audio. And so there are some very inexpensive ways to make even a basic microphone sound pretty good. And these all revolve around soundproofing. How can you soundproof the environment? And a very cheap way is just hanging some sheets up in the room that you're recording. Another way is filming in a place with a lot of furniture. If you've got a really empty room, that's what's going to give it the echo, obviously. So having things that are going to absorb the sound. A really extreme example that I've seen work very well, and I tried this for one video myself, is when you just film with the microphone in front of your wardrobe, which is open with all the clothes hanging up, because all the clothes are going to absorb all the sound, so it's not going to give you that echo, it's going to give you much clearer audio. So if you are looking to improve the sound of your videos, which I highly recommend you focus on, look at how you can soundproof and find ways of filming in a place that's gonna give you the best sound rather than worrying about the microphone itself. Now, just to expand on microphones further, I think another key thing to bear in mind rather than buying an expensive microphone is the positioning of the microphone. That's what's also going to make a big difference. If you've got an amazing microphone but it's miles away, obviously it's going to give you a terrible sound. You need to get it as close as possible. One way you can do that is with these little lavalier microphones. And once you notice these once, you'll start seeing them everywhere. Loads of people use them. They use them on the news, when they're interviewing people, all that stuff. All they are is microphones that you can clip onto your clothing, obviously, so that you can get much closer to the source. And it does work pretty well. Even fairly cheap microphones you can get from Amazon. I saw one that was like, I think it's like $20, $30, but it had amazing reviews. Because the fact is, if you can get the microphone close to you, it's obviously gonna sound better. The recording environment still matters hugely, but in a good setting, one of these can actually sound really great, I think. So that could be a focus as well. Before going and spending hundreds of dollars on a microphone, just start with getting those basics right and you'll be surprised how good the audio can really be. But now I want to share with you what I think is another of the most crucial elements to increasing the production value of your videos, and something that I think most people are completely overlooking, and that is your backdrop. Putting more thought into the background of your videos, I think, is going to give you one of the best return on investments in terms of time and money put in. Because the fact is, so many people are filming videos now, but most people don't put any consideration into it. And so it's just them in their car, in their bedroom, or in their living room. And I'm not saying that can't work. Obviously, the quality of the video, as in the content, is the most important thing. But I think if you can really work on creating a background that's pleasing on the eye, that isn't too distracting, that is consistent every video, and so you kind of become known for having a setting for your videos, and that most importantly, just looks like it's a bit more professional. Now, I'm not saying this is a great background at all. I know it's very simple, but I think simple can work. You can clearly see, though, it's not just a messy bedroom behind me. So I think it does add an extra layer of professionalism. And I've noticed that a lot of the videos that are talking head that do well have really considered what the background is. And the good news is this is something you can do very cheaply. You can either try and design a background by really putting effort into what's behind you, as in you can put, have shelves behind you with things on that are relevant to your video. That works for some people. Or alternatively, you can get something that is like a pop-up green screen like this, or even just a roll-down green screen. And what that'll do, if you've got lighting kit that we talked about earlier that can shine the right amount of light onto it so you don't get shadows, then you can literally go into your video editing program, apply a simple key, which is normally called the Ultra key or sometimes chroma key, something along those lines, depending on what software you're using. Apply that, and you will then be able to change your background to whatever you want. Now, I always thought green screens, you think of movies, you think that's going to be an expensive thing, it's going to be really difficult to do. But if you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know that I was able to use it. It was very cheap to do and not really that complicated. Once you know how to do it once, it's very straightforward. And that means you then have limitless backgrounds. You can have whatever you want behind you. Now, I actually recommend not going too crazy with it. Sometimes just a simple, a simple color behind you or a gradient or something can look nice. But obviously, that is a great way if you don't have access to a backdrop or a background that you like the look of, or you can't create one or can't find a setting to film it that you like. A pop-up green screen can work pretty much anywhere. As long as you've got a little bit of space, you can then change the background to whatever you want. And I highly recommend putting more effort and time and consideration into your backdrop, because it does seem to make a difference. Even if it is just a plain color or something as simple as this, I think it looks a lot more professional and people want to watch more. Because the fact is, if your video doesn't meet a certain level of professionalism, unless you're really well known already, people aren't gonna trust what you're saying quite as much. It definitely adds some credibility. Now, hopefully that's given you a couple of ways you can very cheaply increase the quality of your videos, because if you focus on the lighting, soundproofing, and backdrop, that's gonna give you some really good results, and I think better results than just throwing money at cameras and microphones. And the fact is, video quality, as in production quality, definitely does matter. But I think we also have to remember that only really up to a certain point is it that important. Once you get to a good level of video and a good level of audio, go into that next level then where you have to spend, thousands on equipment. That's actually not gonna give you massively different results. It's not gonna be the difference between your channel blowing up or not. At that point, you just need to be focused on the actual content. So yes, it's good to get to a fairly high level, but then after that, remember, it's just such a marginal difference that it gives you. So don't get into that trap of thinking you need to be constantly buying really expensive equipment, because for YouTube, it's just not necessary. And just to be very clear, I am all in favor of investing in your channel and yourself. But I just think it makes sense to do that in the most efficient way possible that's going to give you the best return on investment, which is why I'm making those suggestions. So hopefully that has been helpful and can potentially save you from some expensive mistakes, can definitely save you some time as well, so that that energy you'd have put into researching this stuff can now be spent making great content for your channel. But there's one final thing I want to mention here, which is that I know a lot of people watching this will be interested in the idea of doing YouTube full time. And I just want to let you know that I've been able to do that since about 1,000 subscribers, which sounds crazy, but it's because I've built a business around YouTube rather than trying to be a YouTuber. And when you view it in that way, it's very possible to make a full-time income from YouTube from quite the early stages. And I want to make this point because I know people are interested in that laptop lifestyle, being able to run a business from anywhere in the world. It's a much more enjoyable way to live, I think. And so if you are interested in that, make sure you check out the top link in the description of this video for more details on how I was able to do that and how you can do that as well. And if you want even more YouTube content from me, then by all means check out this playlist where I've got plenty of information for you on everything you could possibly want to know about building your YouTube channel. I'll hopefully see you over there in that playlist. Thanks for watching. Cheers.